Welcome to the Dominance Academy, where we specialize in revitalizing manhood and leadership. Our approach focuses on developing men to lead with strength and passion, enriching their lives and their families. We provide practical solutions and expert guidance in the realms of sexual education and the mysteries behind polarity and structured power dynamics. Join us at thedominanceacademy.com and restore harmony to your home while rediscovering the joy of a fulfilling masculine presence. It's time to step into your role as a leader and as a man. And now, the host of the show, Mr. Justin.
What's going on? Good evening, good evening. I am Mr. Justin, and this is the Dominance Academy. Hope you had a productive day. I spent a good portion of my day doing research about colognes and how to manufacture some of my own, collecting data on how the larger cologne brands are made, and like what oils they use and what percentages they use. And so I'm going to be doing that. Actually, it's going to be a nice little project with my son. He's getting into fragrances. So we're going to work on the Dominance Academy fragrance brand. So that should be fun, making our own stuff. But yeah, more information about that will be out soon, to be seen on Instagram. So today's program is about commitment and when and if you should, and if you are going to commit, why. And because I think a lot of guys, and then this is for relationships as well as marriage, but they get into like just the social conditioning. They get into just the step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5, and they just kind of like go along with whatever's happening, whatever's happening culturally, and never really question it. And then you get in there, and a lot of times you realize, or you end up realizing that that's really not how the game is played. And unfortunately, a lot of dudes get burned. They'll get burned pretty bad. They'll get burned pretty bad in this situation. So there's things that you can do along the way to mitigate these problems that a lot of guys get into when it comes to commitment. And so what's up, King Solar Power? Yeah, so we're gonna get into some of that. And what I'll do, we'll try this tonight. And I'm going to put this in the chat. For anybody who wants to join me. So this is the link to come onto the stream with me if you have any questions. You can pop in, ask me a question, engage in the conversation. You don't need a camera. You can just pop on and I'll admit you. All right. But yeah, so we're talking about commitment and what you should be doing in order to, make sure that things are in line. Okay. Because, excuse me, all too often dudes get roped into their feelings, right? They get roped into being entranced by a woman, being seduced by her beauty, seduced by her sex, and any other good deed that makes you smile, just generally doing nice shit for you, and they lose sight, right? They lose sight of really what they should be focused on. And it's really simple in concept, but it's really, well, I wouldn't say it's difficult, but it requires an amount of diligence. And really it's just consistency. Like it's really that simple. It's just making sure that there's consistency before you get involved. Now, I guess it'd be pretty typical. Like you'd expect me to say, make sure she's consistent. Okay. But it's really a relationship is about relating, right? It's more than one thing coming together. So your consistency also has to be there. So you could have a very devoted and committed girlfriend or wife or whatever, or wife to be. And she's, oh my God, hold on. Sorry. Oh my God. Fucking dog. Accidentally left him outside. He's just barking like crazy. Anyways, so yeah, it would be pretty typical of me to say, oh, make sure she's on point, make sure she's following your lead and listening to you. And this is true, right? It's true. But she has to have something consistent to be led from. Okay. So it has to be a complete circle. You can't just have one side be like a nice rounded circle and then your side is flat. Okay. Like it really has to go both ways and to be a complete circle. And so you're not only observing, managing, and strengthening her committed behaviors and her consistent behaviors, but you also have to do the same thing for yourself. And almost more importantly, okay, because she's following your lead. So it's super important for you yourself to be the primary focus of your consistency. And then through that, you're going to set up a model. You're going to set up a model for her consistency. What's up, Uncle Guns? Good to see you too. So yeah, so you got to be consistent, okay? So, like, what are the things that you're going to be looking out for, all right? So, one of the things within consistency is that you want to stick by your word, okay? And it's not always possible, sometimes life gets in the way, but it's super important to, when you say you're going to do something, or you say you're about something, or you say you support something, that you really stand by it, that you really stand by what you've said. All right. So you got to keep track of the things that you say, or the things that you say you're going to do. Okay. Because women are sharp. I would say more often than not, they're going to remember things that you've said better than you are. All right. So it's incumbent upon you to work hard to remember the things that you've said you're going to do. All right. And if you got to write things down, do that. Okay. I keep a ledger like in my phone of things that I'm planning on doing. And that's just to help me, like, because I'm getting old. So I got to write this shit down. But yeah, so you got to keep track of stuff, and you have to stand strong by your word, because it's like, that's one of the first places. It's funny because, having a good mouthpiece is probably, aside from your mind, the mouthpiece is the next best thing. Mouthpiece is the next best thing, where this is your sharpest weapon. This is your most accelerated tool that you have. All right. But at the same time, it's the most fragile. It's almost like a samurai sword, right? So samurai sword is extremely sharp and very fast. However, if you just take like two rocks and hit it like sideways at like top and bottom, you'll just shatter the blade. You can shatter it. Okay. And so it's super sharp, but it's also very brittle. Okay. And so this is kind of how like your mouthpiece is, because in the sense that it's very sharp, it can do a lot. All right. But at the same time, it's the thing that can most easily bring you down. It can easily break, if that makes sense. So that you say a certain something and you weren't thinking about it, or you made a promise that you can't keep. This is the sort of thing that will break you down. If you catch yourself insulting, being insulting, being rude, being super condescending, this is going to break down the strength of your word. All right. And from there's like it begins to be like a crack. All right. Now cracks can be mended. All right. That's fine. But, because we're not perfect, we're not robots, we're human beings. All right. But if that crack grows and it turns into a fissure, and then she starts going in, starts seeing in, and starts realizing that this starts depleting the structural integrity of who you are. So really, it starts with the mind, but the next step is your voice. So you really have to maintain your voice along with your mind in order to keep that consistency going on your end. All right. And the other thing that, the other side of that is staying tight on her. Okay. So if you're going to say, have some kind of rules, right? And relationships actually have a lot of rules, like even like relationships that are unlike my own, it's just unspoken, right? So there's a lot of unspoken rules when, in my opinion, that's what leads to a lot of problems, is that there's these assumed agreements, and you really can't go through relationships with assumed agreements. You have to make them actual agreements. All right. And so you bring these things out to light. But once you are making these agreements clear, all right, then you have to stay on top of it. And you can't let her slide, okay? Especially if she's not used to that sort of thing, okay? So if she's not used to that sort of thing, and you're not used to that sort of thing, then you're really going to have to stay diligent. You're going to have to work hard in remembering these things, okay? Because it's going to be weak if you set a rule and then you don't follow up on it. You don't maintain it. You don't keep it strong and healthy, okay? And that's going to weaken her. That's going to weaken the bonds that you have going on with her, okay? Man, pardon me, I don't know what's going on with my throat tonight. But so if you set up like a certain rule, like let's say the rule is that she's to make the bed every morning. All right, let's just say that's your rule. And you present this to her and you're like, I want you to make the bed every morning. If she starts slipping on that, okay, which might happen, say, in the beginning when it's a new thing, right? And you have to remind her, then you have to be on top of that. If you start slipping on that, because that's not part of your regular thing or whatever, it's just something you want to start in a relationship with, which is fine. If you start sliding on that, then you say the bed doesn't get made 4 times in a row. And then on the 5th time, you're like, oh shit. And you like remember it again. And you try to enforce this stuff and come in all like, all tough guy. It's not going to work. It's really not going to work. So then you kind of have to revisit the whole thing again and present yourself with honesty and be like, look, I let it slide myself. Okay, let's start again. I want to see the bed made every single morning. All right. So it's sort of like, you're readjusting to a new schedule for yourself and her, but you have to be consistent with it because, if you're not, then things just don't get rolling. All right. And I think we all know this in various parts of your life. Like, let's say you wanted to start a new exercise regimen at the gym, right? And you're like, all right, I'm going to hit the gym 4 days, a week. And like for the first 2 weeks, you're doing it. And then the next week, this thing gets in the way, that gets in the way, your friend is in town, blah, 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 like all this stuff. And then that starts breaking apart. And next thing you know, you're not on a consistent schedule anymore. So it's important to remind yourself, like, if you're going to have rules, don't set up like a whole bunch of difficult ones. All right. Don't set up a whole bunch at all. Just have a couple that are not very challenging, that are easily adapted to, and then you can start adding more as these things grow and they become consistent on both of your parts. Okay. Because like, if you're not consistent and you're not upholding a structure that she's expecting because you talked about it, then attraction's going to go down, right? Attraction's going to go down. Respect is going to go down. I don't know if she's going to, think you're a loser or whatever, but it's just kind of like, I don't know, maybe she'll raise an eyebrow. Like, really? He told me that he was going to be all on top of this shit. And now he's just kind of like letting me prance away and leave the bed crazy, or whatever the rule is, So you gotta remember to do that. Okay. Be on top of your shit, because it's just unattractive. It really is. And and like, I think for a number of women out there, if presented, this is actually a very attractive thing, like having this kind of structure. It's it can be challenging, but it's also attractive because of, some of the things that I mentioned in earlier videos, where it like plays into, actually it was today's video, where it plays into part of the fantasy. It plays into part of the archetypes that are living in her head about being in like this fantasy relationship, and I mentioned about how there's a collision between fantasy and reality, and a lot of women, they like to blur these things, or they would love to blur these things. That's why they adore the whole princess story, okay, being whisked away and all that stuff. So being that guy is part of it, okay. So it's sort of like being that tyrant with a heart, okay, or that stern professor who has a soft side. And so it's like, that's the kind of person you have to be. Like, you can't be super rough and super hard-edged and immovable, because it's just there's nothing there for her. Like, women are soft creatures. They like to be held and nurtured and coddled and all that shit. But if you do too much of that, then they kind of like everything like falls apart. There's just too much. There's too much of that stuff, and then she just gets away with murder, and you can't have that. Okay, you can't have your little woman running amok. You gotta like keep her on a little bit of a leash. And you can do that literally or figuratively. It's up to you. But yeah, guys, you guys will commit, to a woman before either of you are consistent with anything, and like you buy in, you're bought in. It's like, dang, like, she's got that good head game, and, like the sex is fire, or whatever you're impressed by. And then you guys are like, yeah, I want to, like, she's a keeper. Right? It's funny. Like, you look on like social media, and I know it's jokes and stuff, and it's something about deep throating and making breakfast or whatever, and the guys are like, yeah, she's a keeper, and it's like, nah, that's really not it. Like, that doesn't cut it, because like, you want someone who shows up, you know what I mean? And I think a lot of guys, they also make the mistake of thinking that she's going to do it all on her own. Okay. And some may, okay. They might bond to this very, very well. okay? Because maybe they're very organized, or they're a very submissive being and they really want to follow. Like it's just something in them that draws them to leadership in a very deep way. And then others need reminders. And then others purposely like reminders, like my girl. She purposely forgets to do stuff so that she can get a reaction out of daddy. So, but it's all in good heart. Nothing serious. But you can't just go in and think everything's going to be hunky dory just because you're having sex and watching movies and eating food. Like that's not the consistency that relationships are built upon. Like this isn't what builds trust. Okay. Trust is built on consistency. All right. I've mentioned the, analogy of like a chair. And, if I say, hey, I made you a chair, and I have no background in furniture making whatsoever, and it looks a bit janky, and you take a seat on it and it almost breaks from underneath you, the following day, if I ask you to sit my chair again, you're going to be like, I don't know, right? But if I do the opposite and make something solid, and you sit on it, it's solid, and then it's solid every day after that, your trust in my ability to create furniture is going to grow tremendously. Okay, so this is why it's really important to embrace the concepts that I call the conductor mindset. Because the conductor does not immerse himself. Okay, he can't. It's not possible for him, because he knows that if he gets too immersed, then things can fall apart. Right? The orchestra starts playing all weird and shit. Okay, they're looking to him for that guidance, and it's almost like you are also the orchestra. You're the conductor and you're the orchestra. So you're the one who's responsible for creating and maintaining. And this is how the consistency is built. Okay, this is how she then sees this and then learns to trust you more. Okay. Now this is just in like general structural concepts. Okay. We're not talking about, doing freaky stuff in the bedroom or, something adventurous outside of the bedroom. We're not talking like situational trust. We're just talking about trust in general. Okay. Because trust has layers to it. Okay. Like there's like general trust, and then it can get more and more granular, where the trust is starting to touch on like certain deeper hidden pain points, and then things will come up in these certain situations, and yes, maybe generally she has trust in you, but maybe this one particular situation is triggered, or it triggers something from her past where trust was really kind of screwy in this one lane, and so now there's this other avenue with its own layers. So trust isn't just like this one thing, like, hey, either you trust me or you don't, right? It's a fairly complex situation, okay? And I certainly don't think that it's fair to put something on someone, whether it's a lover, a girlfriend, wife, or even a friend, and you say, hey, you know what? Either you are, pull like the, who said that? George Bush Jr. Either you're with us or you're against us. And it's like, bro, it's not that black and white. Okay. Because we're complex human beings, our psyches have a lot of layers to them. And so we can't expect immediate 100% trust in all areas, like all at once. Okay. That would take a very, very daring woman. And my goodness, you have better be super on point for that to occur. Okay. It's a growth process. Okay. Because unless you have experience going very deep into trust, this is going to be new territory for you as well. Okay. So you're learning yourself in these situations while you're helping her learn to trust and trust in your consistency and have that confidence built in. Okay. But it's like, kind of like your mouthpiece. It's like there's like once that's established, it's looked upon as something stable. And once that starts getting weird due to, a circumstance or your inability to maintain whatever it is you've created, then she starts doubting. She starts doubting you and starts seeing chinks in your armor or chinks in your program, and then doubt starts seeping in. And once doubt starts seeping in, I wouldn't say that it's like a cancer that can't be removed. I'm not saying that at all. It's more like a cavity in your tooth that if you just let it be, it's going to start spreading and getting bigger, right? So it has to be dealt with like directly, okay? And frankly, like a lot of people aren't very adept at that, because in order to do that, it requires trust within yourself. Like you have to have a lot of faith and trust in yourself in order to do these things. Okay. Like just this evening, I was speaking with a client about these things, and we're talking about fears and things of that nature. And, he did an exercise with me around fear. And I helped him understand that, yes, there's some things that you do out of fear, and there's some things you do, some things you avoid out of fear, and then there's some things you do despite being afraid. And those things, they're fairly equal in terms of their fear level, right? Or their level of discomfort, which means that they're equal. But the weird part is that, some of the things over here, you did them anyways because even though you were afraid, you did them anyways. And then the stuff over here, you avoided because you were afraid. All right. But, fear is fear. It's equal. It's not like, I've got like a 6.7 fear. You know what I mean? Like if you have fear, you have fear. And so when you look at it in the same way that they're equal, then you got to question like, well, why was this easier and that's not? Right? It's just my beliefs and my perceptions. And for some reason over here, I was able to trust myself, trust my judgment, trust my choices, and really believe in me in order to do these things that I was afraid of. Okay. And which means if you could do it over here, you could do it anywhere. Right. And this is part of being consistent, right? Because you can't have doubt and be dominant. You can't have doubt and lead. All right. You can't be second guessing yourself. Okay. Because that's going to make whoever's following you looking around and be like, wait a second. Like he's stutter stepping. He's checking the road 8 times before crossing the street. Like that makes her do it double. Right. So she stutter steps double. She looks 16 times across the street, right? Because she's like, well, wait, like if he's being uncertain and looking around, then something's wrong. All right. And now that puts her on higher alert, because she's feminine, she's more vulnerable, she's say like physically weaker, more emotionally triggered. Okay. So she's got to like watch herself and like, wait a second, this guy who's supposed to be my protector, right? My mental, my physical, my emotional protector. And he's out here second guessing. He's out here second guessing himself and second guessing the situation. Now I'm getting scared. All right. And that'll cause her to shrink back like a hermit crab. Okay. So part of having the consistency, I mentioned, is remembering the things that you want to introduce or you want to uphold in your relationship. But the other part is like, it's not enough to just have it there. You have to trust in yourself to move these things along and not doubt yourself. Okay. Because along with inconsistency and things of that nature, second guessing yourself is equally as unattractive. Like it second guessing your choices makes women think, well, is he going to second guess me? And then that makes her not want to commit to you. Okay. So if you're like a wishy-washy guy, it's going to be fairly rare, or it's going to be rare that she commits to you, like with her heart, her mind, her body, her soul. Or if she does, it's just going to be limited. It's going to be just like a little chunk, right, of her commitment and her trust, her loyalty, right? So because she's just going to see that it like has its limit, okay? And so really you absolutely have to put a lot of trust in yourself that you're not going to fuck it up. You know, because frankly, like, say like nice guys, you know, guys with nice guy syndrome, they've got this thing where they are preoccupied with being perfect. They really are. They're really preoccupied with being perfect. And the funny thing is that in their efforts to be perfect, they actually make themselves more unattractive, which usually makes them work harder in being perfect and being more acceptable. So it's just a weird thing. So like you guys like actually like sabotage yourselves. And that might be something that you unconsciously do, that you're doing this to yourself on purpose. You know, because maybe you want the girl, but then realize that it's too much work. Right? It's work to maintain things. I don't care what it is. Right? Like I've got a motorcycle, like I have to maintain it or it's going to fall apart. Okay? Like if you've got a home, you have to maintain it. If you've got a garden, you have to maintain it. Like everything needs maintenance. Your body needs maintenance. Your mind needs maintenance. Your animals need maintenance. Your woman needs maintenance. So if you don't have a mindset of maintenance, right, where you're taking care of shit, all right, it might not be the best thing for you to get into a long-term relationship or a marriage. It might not be. I'm not saying that it won't, all right, but it's like if you look at everything else that has longevity over time, you have to take care of it, or entropy falls into place and it just starts eroding and crumbling. Okay. So it's like that's really what you're trying to prevent. Okay. And so these things, they're avoided mostly by consistency and remembering things and having that faith in yourself. Okay. You know, but you guys you'll put faith in so many other things though. It's really weird. Like you'll put so much faith in the things you're doing. You'll put so much faith in the things you're doing, but you won't put faith in yourself. You'll put faith in your hobbies. You'll put faith in your job. All right. Even your relationship. You know, put faith in your relationship, but you're not going to have faith in yourself. Okay. And then in the same breath, you know, wanting her undying allegiance to you. And it's like, bro, how is she going to have undying allegiance to you if you don't have undying allegiance to yourself? You know, and I was in this good clubhouse room. Locario was there actually. And we were talking about the concept of these, you know, what I think it was millennials, like millennial guys, and how you are chameleon-like. And this guy came on stage and he was of that age group, but he didn't behave like them. He just observed it. And he's like, I know tons of guys who are like chameleons. You know, they will shapeshift to get ahead. They'll shapeshift to get with a woman. And then it's like when things are not working out, they kind of like ride it until it fizzles out. And then they like shapeshift out of it. And like, you know, this just isn't working for me, or, oh, we're just incompatible. And they're really just very flexible guys. They're really flexible. And flexibility, and it's kind of, I think the room topic was something around flexibility being a more feminine trait. Okay. Being more accommodating, being able to adapt to, the other people around you. Like, this is what millennial guys are doing. At least that's what the guy was explaining to me. And they adapt to the woman. And then in the same breath, they'll also say, I want to be the head of the household. And it's like, well, if you're adapting to her and she wants to adapt to you, what form are you taking? Right? That's like taking like 2 handfuls of water and like splashing them together. Okay? It just goes all over the place. Like, you need a cup and then you need water to go in the cup. Okay? Like, that's how it works. Somebody has to be the cup. It can be the woman. It can be the man. All right? But, and that's another turn for like how the conversation went, was that like, yeah, maybe these guys are not really, maybe these guys are sort of telling half truths when they're making these satirical jabs at women, and touting the soft guy era. Okay. And it's like, maybe they're telling a half truth. Like, maybe, yeah, they would prefer to be, living a soft life. Having a woman take care of them and be the big mommy for them. And truth be told, if you're that way, like, if you really just love strong, independent, dominant women, and you find that attractive, go after those women and be honest with yourself. Don't try to be, extra alpha. And my guess is like, the guys who try to be extra alpha, it's sort of like those dudes who get like the big monster trucks, or the pickup. It's like a big pickup truck. And then they like jack up the suspension and put big wheels on it. And they're like riding like fucking 10 feet off the ground. And everybody looks at them and like, yeah, we know you're compensating for something. Like, whether it's your dick size or your self-esteem or whatever, but you're compensating for something. Okay. And, like they do it in, like a myriad of different ways, but it's like, that's how these guys are. And they try to compensate by being that alpha, like being that like extra alpha. I'm going to show all the men, how bold of an alpha that I can be. And oftentimes on social media, it's like they like talk a big game, but I have the feeling that like in their heart of hearts, they would just like to cuddle up into the bosom of a woman, nice warm set of titties, take a nap, like put her nipple in your mouth and take a nap. And I really think that's what a lot of guys would really be into. But they're lying to themselves, right? They're like, oh no, I can't be that. That's too feminine, that's gay. And it's like, nah, come on, dude. Like, you just be honest with yourself. You want a strong, dominant woman to take care of you. And, if you just adhere to that as your true desire and say, fuck anybody who has anything to say about it, then that's you living in your truth, Because, like, there's no sense in you being that way. Okay, let's say just you're more yielding. Let's say you're more easygoing. You're not very assertive. It's actually going to harm your relationships by trying to be more assertive, because you're going to overdo it. Okay, it's going to harm your relationships by being more disagreeable, because you're going to overdo that as well. All right, you're just going to be uncalibrated because it's not coming from your nature. It's not your comfort zone. Okay. So, and then if you get into the stuff that I'm talking about, like with consistency and trust and making rules, and looking for signs of commitment and structure building, this is going to be incredibly stressful for you. because you're not used to this, because it's so counter to your nature. Like easygoing guys, they're not they're not turned on by having structure in their relationships. Okay, they're not turned on by structure. Period. Okay, and so if they try to go for it, if they try to go for structure, then they're going to cause themselves a lot of stress, and then that stress is going to permeate through the relationship and cause a lot of problems. Unfortunately, though, you might find yourself in a relationship and you're like, you know what, fuck it, I'm just gonna get this out and say what I really want. And if she's not a dominant type who wants to lead, then you've got a problem on your hands, because now you've just shown your true self to the woman, and the relationship might die. But that's okay. That's all right. I'm working with a guy right now, and his relationship is dying, but at the same time, he's coming to a greater understanding of himself, and this is where the prize is. It's kind of like I was explaining to him. It's sort of like have you ever played any sort of games that involve shooting, where there's like a reticle that collapses in, like a targeting system, and it gets smaller and smaller and smaller, and then it locks onto your target, and then you can fire. It's kind of like that. So he's his reticle is getting smaller and smaller, and it's honing in on himself, and it's locking in on that target. And once that's there, you're pretty comfortable. You're pretty comfortable in pretty much any situation. So your woman's upset, you guys going through a breakup or whatever, just things don't go the way you expect or what have you, then it's not going to be so bothersome. Pardon me. So it's not going to be so bothersome, and then you're just able to stand on your square, and it's no big deal. No big deal at all. But this is all of this shit is what you need to then have her do what you need to do, all of this shit you have to have in order to have her do what she needs to do in order for you to commit to her. Okay? So it's don't commit to a woman because she's available. Don't commit to her because she's pretty. Don't commit to her because the sex is good. Don't commit to her because she's nice. Okay? You commit to her when she has consistent behavior that is befitting your program. Now, of course, you need to have one of those to begin with, right? And you can't bullshit yourself and say, yes, you know what it is, when you've never actually sat down with yourself to figure it out. With a notebook, writing, thinking, and laying this stuff out. This is one of the things that we do at the Academy. We help guys create their program so that's actually a solid thing that that you can put your trust into. Okay? But it's you got to have all these things. Okay? Or at least in varying degrees of finishedness. Right? You can't walk in blind and then commit to a woman and she's not following anything. Okay? And that just says you're one of those guys who's just happy to be there. Don't be one of those guys. Don't be happy to be here kind of guy. Okay? Because that really displays that you have no options. You really can't do anything, right? You're just so entranced. You're so happy to have access to a woman that you're just kind of stuck there. You're like a barnacle. Don't be a barnacle man. Okay? Yeah, barnacles are for suckers, man. Yeah, don't be a barnacle on her ship. Because she's going to get bored of that, like real quick. Like it might be cute for a little while, but yeah, she's going to get bored of that shit real quick. And it might be cute for a little bit, tiny bit of time. Like, oh, look how cute he is. But no, eventually that's just going to get on her nerves big time. You know, and you could say, yeah, like on one hand, said, you know, fuck what she thinks. But like if you're getting into a relationship, like there's something you want, okay? You want to get married, right? Or you want to just have a long-term relationship. It's like you got to get your mental shit together, okay? Like get your head out of pleasure. Yeah, you're going to have tons of pleasure, right? Relationships are a lot of fun. And, you know, and yeah, they're great, but like you have to get your attention away from just getting pleasure, because this will just keep you either still in the progression of the relationship, or it's going to make the progression very, very slow. Okay. Pleasure, just like, you know, many things in life, should be seen as a reward, okay, for a job well done. Okay, that's how pleasure, because when you set it up that way, then it becomes that much more valuable, right? And so when things are earned, and so if you treat yourself this way, right, you don't just like, I don't know, get yourself ice cream whenever you feel like it. That's not going to be good, right? It's not going to be very strong. But if you set that up as, because you know you like ice cream, and you set that up as a reward for, I don't know, like you've got a goal for, you know, finishing this novel in 2 weeks, all right? So you're like pounding away at this novel and you're reading like crazy, and your goal is completed after 2 weeks. You say, okay, as a reward, I'm going to give myself ice cream. And so if you routinely like set this up for yourself, then it's going to be that much easier to have that sort of system within your relationship, because you've been operating like this on your own. Okay. So this is something you can try. Like notice the things that you really enjoy doing or really enjoy consuming. Okay. And the consumption can be like food, drink, entertainment, you know, like let's say you love going to comedy shows. All right. And yeah, you would love it to go like every weekend to a comedy show, but like that's gluttonous, right? So you set goals for yourself. You can set like, you know, say short goals, medium goals, and long-term goals. And when you meet them, you give yourself that reward of going to a comedy show, and it's going to be that much better. And you keep this up, this kind of mentality. Then when you are in a relationship and you want to set up some kind of polarity, having this system in place, like within you, so it's not foreign, is going to be extremely helpful. Very, very helpful. However, if it's not in you to be like this, now you're just using it as a means of gaining power, gaining control so that you can feel safe. And that's not what it's about. It's not about setting up a situation where you feel safe. Like I know a guy who's like that. And he was hurt really, really bad in a relationship, and it just like destroyed him. And so in order to survive, he had to build like these really strong walls and with a lot of boundaries. And when they get close, when like women get close, he just grabs for the control right away. Okay. And it's not healthy. I mean, they're fine. Like at least from my end, it seems like they're fine. Like the women are fine, but he's not fine. Okay. So, you know, again, it's not just the actions that you're taking. It's also important to understand what your motivations are. So it's like I could set up all kind of rules for my girl, and if I'm insecure, then those rules are motivated and inspired by something that's not really good. Okay, it's extremely self-serving, and you know, turning her into a little puppet so that I can be safe, right? And that's just not how these things work, right? It all starts with a self. So if you had that self-love, if you have that self-trust, if you have that self-confidence, which is believing in something. That's what confidence is. I'm confident that the chair will not break. You have strong belief. That's what confidence is. Then, it's just going to benefit everything moving forward. Like you need to have these in place first. If you don't, then any sort of control mechanisms, any sort of structure, you're going to have it there as a means of making you feel safe because that stuff isn't developed. Okay? And so you're kind of like acting out like a teenager, right? So you're acting out to manipulate and control this woman. And like, this is, how I saw this guy. Like I knew he had problems like internally and, probably stemming from childhood. And so he had to protect himself, right? Because those problems led to that serious breakup. And now, so he doesn't get wrapped up into these sort of things again, he assumes a lot of control. Okay. And this is not being dominant. What that is it's being domineering. So there's a difference between being a dominant and being domineering. Okay. Like domineering is no fun. It's not growth minded. Okay. It's just all about control. Domination does have elements of control, but it's an invitation. It's an invitation for guidance. All right. It's an invitation for influence. And it does have a growth sort of feel behind it all because there's a greater point to it. So it's like if I have my woman say like learning a new thing or I want to train her on a certain something, it's not just so I can be happy. All right. It's like connected to the greater structure of the relationship because I see that if she were to learn this or this bad habit or this bad behavior were to be removed or this good behavior were to come in, I understand how that would benefit the larger structure of everything. So it's really not about me. Okay. Domineering guys, they make it all about themselves because they need to feel that safety. And you'll see this, like just pay attention to your peers, your friends. If you're on Clubhouse, you can hear a lot of that shit on there, where guys are either controlling women or advocating for control of women. And when we move like that, when we seek control in these ways, I really do think that it's motivated by fear. Like I can't see like any other reason why. Okay. And so we often try to, control the things that we fear and control the things that we don't understand. And so it's like, that's where this comes in. Right. And you're not going to build anything off of this, right? This doesn't gain her commitment. You can, it might look like it, but it's just going to be like puppeteering, manipulation, threats. Okay. This isn't control. This is being domineering. All right. This is not being dominant. So, understand that. And if you need more information, just look it up, like the differences between domination and being domineering. Okay. There's a bit of darkness with domineering. So if you've noticed that within yourself, like that's quite all right. If you notice that within yourself, that you have domineering aspects, that's quite all right. All that means is that there's a great opportunity for self-exploration to understand where that comes from and why you're acting this way. And is it beneficial to you? Is it beneficial to your woman? Is it beneficial to the relationship? All right. So it's like you got to get rid of a lot of crud, actually. You got to like scrape it from the inside of you. Once that crud is gone, then you can start putting more and more faith into yourself. You can start putting more commitment to yourself, giving her the signal that it's okay to commit to you. And you're not going to demand it. You're not going to manipulate for it. Same with her submission. You're not going to demand her submission. You're going to invite her to submission. And this is something you have to learn. You have to learn to do this. All right. If you have any questions, just pop them in the chat. I'm going to be on here just a few more minutes as my throat's bothering me. But yeah, it's so I hope you can see that these things are not as simple as they appear. And that's why you fuck up. Okay? That's why you fuck up. It's just lack of understanding. Okay? And just jumping in because you feel like it. Okay? Your emotions are guiding you to jumping into something. And you're not even half prepared. It's like you're like quarter prepared or just prepared because of how you feel. Okay? Don't get into relationships because of how you feel. Like, imagine if you were immortal. How many women you would fall in love with? Probably tons and tons and tons of women. Okay? And after a while, you'd know that that's not the thing that makes things go. Yes, in a good relationship, you need love, okay? But that's not going to be the thing that allows things to grow. Now, you could get into a philosophical argument that say, well, if you've got a good heart, you do love, then from that love is where your structure comes from, okay? And I get that, okay? It's like, when you have her bent over your knee and you're giving her a spanking for something she deserves, and you're doing it out of love for her and the greater structure of things. Like, I love my relationship so much that I'm not going to let your bad behavior ruin it. So I could see that. What's up, Shepard? Salute to Eros and Ray Flores. Good to see you guys. Yeah. It's great on paper, okay? But really you got to work at it. Like, it's something you have to maintain. Again, you can't be in this if you don't have a maintenance mindset. Okay? Like, maybe if you want to train yourself a little bit just to get your head in that space, put things in your life that need maintenance. Okay? Like plants, for instance. Like, plants need regular maintenance. And you have like different kinds, right? Because like some need lots of water, some need a little bit of water, some need direct sun, some need no sun, some need partial sun. And you got to like learn how to care for these things properly. So if you can not kill plants, right? And you can maintain plants that are all like different types and require different care, then yeah, you can do this. It's like, it is that simple, but you have to have the mindset for it. Eros says, is inviting her to submission, presenting it, and letting her choose it? Yes. Yep. That's what all invitations are, right? You get an invitation to a party, and they're like, hey, come to our party at this address, and it's going to be a good time. We're going to music and games and, toys and cake and, all kinds of good stuff to eat or whatever. And then they just leave it with you. And then you decide if you want to go or not. That's the same sort of thing. And this is actually quite attractive for women, right? Why? Because it takes the pressure off of them. It doesn't put a lot of pressure on them. And especially if she can feel this from you. If she can feel from you that you're kind of indifferent, like you're okay. Like, yes, you'd love it if she would come into your fold and accept your invitation, okay? But if she doesn't, it's not like you're going to be losing sleep, okay? It is what it is, and that's quite all right. She has free will. She can do whatever she likes. And this is the mentality that you must maintain after the invitation is accepted for months or years, right? So like, just because she's your girl doesn't mean that she no longer has free will. Even in like hardcore BDSM relationships, like hardcore master slave relationships, the woman, she can duck out at any time. She can just be like, you know what? It's Tuesday. I'm not really into this anymore. I'm ending this dynamic. I don't want to be part of it anymore. Okay. So even in these very like high protocol, like basically where she's like a walking servant for her master, she can duck out. So if that kind of person with that like super high level devotion can duck out, then your regular girl who's just in like a regular relationship, she can do the same thing. And your fears around these things is going to drive you crazy, which will end up making her want to leave anyways. Okay. So you got to relax, you really got to relax. Hey, what's up, Will? Good to see you, man. But yeah, what's that one? Yeah, you got to relax on that shit. Yep. Okay. So if you got any other questions, just pop them in there. Or you can come up on stage. Okay. All right. Well, here we are at the hour mark. If you don't have any questions, let's see. Naomi would have been butthurt outside her window playing R&B music, asking for her back. Reminds me of that. What movie was that? Say Anything? Yeah, it's this 80s classic with John Cusack. And it's that famous scene, he's like in the trench coat and he's got this, 80s boombox over his head playing music out, like blasting it outside of this girl's window that he was like, crazy in love with. Man, like that's some crazy simp shit. And it's like you think it's like, does the media create simps or do simps create the media? Like the inspiration for the media. It's hard to see like, which came first, chicken or the egg. Yeah. Thanks, Guns. Is a woman's submission an investment in her ego? No, it's actually the opposite. Okay. You're 18 years too late. Damn, don't look so happy there in your picture. Embarrassed. But yes. Okay, so no, a woman's submission is not an investment into her ego, right? Your ego, you got to like look these things up. Your ego is the self that you present to the world. Okay, it's almost like your idealized self, like who you think you should be or whatever. But no, it's not an investment in her ego. It's actually the opposite. All right, where she's learning to let go of her ego, let go of her assumed self. Okay, and with that is letting go of her pride, letting go of her independence. Okay, but it's like, yeah, those things sound fantastic, don't they? Right? Like super soft, feminine girl. She just like looks at you with twinkles in her eyes, and she's like, my goodness, I love this man. He is my lord. All right. But it's like, that's some responsibility. Okay. Like, you have to give a shit. You understand? You have to give a shit about these situations or nothing comes of them. Like only destruction will come from these things. All right. So if like you care about humanity or like our crumbling society, like it's crumbling as we speak. Okay. If you could give a fuck, then right, whatever. You know what I mean? But if you want these things and the thought of having a woman like that in your life sounds enticing, then you have to accept the fact that when a woman starts reducing these things, right, her pride, her ego, her independence, that places more responsibility on you. Because without those structures in place, like ego is structure, pride is structure, independence is structure, once those things start crumbling or weakening, or like, just having like some edges shaved off and just gets a little bit finer, a little bit less dense, that self of hers is going to want to look for structure. It's going to look for that comfort, all right? That emotional comfort. That's what it's going to be looking for. Daniel, what's up, man?
What's up? What's up, Coach Justin? What's up?
How are you?
I've been great as of recently. I have been doing
Great.
progress.
Fantastic. Do you got a question?
Yeah. My question is that at what length do you think a submission from a woman is required for all situations?
At what length of a woman's submission is required for all situations?
Yeah. Is it
None.
required for casual? None.
None.
Why?
No, a woman's
why?
submission is not required, right? Because it's an invitation, right? Right. Yes. So you don't require a woman to be submissive. You give her the opportunity to be submissive. Okay? So look at it like you are a fine dining restaurant, okay? You're like a 4 Michelin star restaurant, all right? The maitre d' is wearing a tuxedo. The waiters are wearing tuxedos, right? Everything is served on silver. It's gorgeous, right? There's a very high protocol in your restaurant. There's certain type of music. There's certain type of decorum that's there, and behavior has a certain expectation. Okay, and let's just say there's a host or hostess standing outside as people are walking by, and she's standing there very nice at a podium. She's got like her book there to like book in people who want tables, and she invites you. She's like, "Hey, would you like to come in and have a seat?" All right. It's an invitation in, okay? But once you're in there, now there's certain expectations. But you can't have expectations of the behavior of the patrons if they haven't entered your establishment yet, right? So it's kind of like that. So you can't expect submission. You can't expect the proper behavior or expect any kind of behavior until they've accepted your invitation. Then once they're inside, you say, okay, this is what I expect. This is what's required for you to stay in this establishment. You have to dress properly. You have to speak properly. You have to hold your fork in a certain way. You got to sit straight backed. You can't get fucking like trash drunk. All right. You got to keep your voice low. All right. All these sort of things. Okay. And it's kind of like that. So you can't expect non-patrons to have submission until they've campaigned to be on your program. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah. Allow me to elaborate my question. What does it for you? Your ideal situation with a woman. Is it your ideal situation to be to have all women that you're with submissive towards you, even if it's casual? What's your ideal situation?
No, because they have free will, don't they?
Yeah, so you don't expect them to be submissive to you at all.
No,
like you're just inviting them for the opportunity.
No. They have free will. They are autonomous human beings that exist in their own reality. They can do as they please, as long as they're not, egregiously rude towards me or whatever, and then they just get dismissed from my presence. But beyond that, like, no, there's no requirements. Okay.
I
Yep, they
see.
have free will. Yeah.
All right. Well, maybe I'm confused on what program you should have as a man because
Well, your program
that,
can't extend to women who aren't campaigning to be on it, right?
oh, I see.
That would be a waste of your gift. If you're trying to like, hey, you want to get on it? You want to get on it? Hey, you're not on it. You should be like, you can't like push it on people who are not interested in being on it. Right? You can't drag people off the street and shove them into your restaurant and say, take a seat. Okay? Because that makes you look desperate. Okay? Don't be desperate. You don't need the patrons. You're fine.
So it's just an opportunity for any woman to accept
Yeah.
the
Yes.
submission.
I mean, yes, yes. Well, men with a capital M are an opportunity. Like, males are not opportunities. They're actually quite dangerous to women. Right? Because they're led by pleasure seeking. They're led by seeking control. They're led by wanting submission from perfect strangers. Right? The women are perfect strangers. They, you can't expect submission from them. Right? That's your ego. That's your pride. Right? That's your foolishness. Grasping. Okay? You cannot grasp. Women in your life are always an invitation. It's always an invitation into your life. Okay? Never grasping, never controlling until they want it, until they want control. And then you step by step offer different avenues for control. Okay? You can't like for instance, in my relationship, and I'll let you go after this, but like in my relationship, I like the idea of orgasm control. I wasn't like, baby, I'm taking control of your orgasms. It doesn't work that way. All right. I invited her to it. I presented what it was because she didn't understand what it was. And then after I explained it, she's like, you know what? That actually sounds pretty hot. Okay. I'm into it. You may have control over my orgasms, right? Because at that point, she was fully autonomous, had free will, and full control over her pleasure. And after understanding what I was after, she then decided that it was okay to relinquish that power of her, of her own pleasure to me. Okay.
That's not clever. Not clever.
All right. Yeah. All right. Well, if you have any other questions, you can just message me on IG or shoot me an email.
Okay, coach.
All right, man. Cool. Will, in reference to your comment about SM and simps, not dumps. In reference to your comment about SM and simps all over SM, what's SM? I'm seeing girls say social media. Okay. Social media and simps all over social media. I'm seeing girls say, I want the loverest lover boy. Y'all can keep the thugs. Guys are trying to wow the women, trying to meet her wants. Well, I would say the problem is in your second sentence. All over social media, I'm seeing girls say. What do we say at the Academy? Women, unless they are your woman, are NPCs. They are non-player characters. You don't listen or see women say anything. You don't listen to NPCs. You don't pay attention to NPCs. You don't follow NPCs. You don't, stop on one of the reels and listen to what has to be said because there's no value in it for you. It's entertainment that drags your consciousness out of your mind and puts it in a place where it does not belong. And it doesn't give you any kind of value aside from, I don't know, maybe certain thoughts that don't really do anything for you. It doesn't provide any value. So who cares what women are saying? Because they're not your woman. That's the only woman that really matters, right? The woman that says yes. The woman says, I want to. The woman that says, how can I help you? The woman that says, show me more. The woman that says, please, right? Like all these willingness, open-minded sort of behaviors. And she's campaigned on your program. She's on your program. She's your woman. Her thoughts matter. Okay, because she's made it known, she's proven to you that her thoughts matter. Or her words matter. All these other women, they're ghosts. They're NPCs. That's it. So why pay attention to them? Makes sense, right? It's not a waste of energy, waste of time. Therefore, social media are making the Sims. I was answering a question. Oh yeah. But I'm just like looking at remember, Will, right? Truth is found out in the words that you say because it indicates your thinking. So you typed out, I'm all over social media. I'm seeing girls say. Why are you seeing women say shit? They're not yours. They don't matter. They should be relatively invisible. Okay? Until one catches your eye and you're like, you know what? I'm gonna make her an offer. She takes it up, then you start the process of bringing her in. If she doesn't take the offer, okay, cool. Back to NPC land with you. And you go about your day. Oh, goodness. Leaning, I am not your master. But thank you. Oh boy. I seem to have a fan. Appreciate that. But so I think that that's what we're going to do here. We're going to wrap this up on that one. Leaning. Maybe you need some V8 so you stand up straight from leaning. You guys probably don't remember that. When I was younger, the V8 juice, the veggie juice, the commercials, everyone was like walking diagonally, like with some camera tricks or whatever, and they're like, "Oh, you haven't had your V8 today," and you like add their V8, and they're like, and they walked up vertical again, But anyways, I am wrapping this up. I am pulling this to a close. So I appreciate you guys coming through. Daniel, shout out to Daniel for coming on up and having the balls to come out and even use his camera, no less, to ask questions. So big ups to him. But all of you guys are great. Thank you for coming through, supporting the channel. Please share any of my stuff that you find valuable. Share it with a friend. Okay, help them out. And to all of you who are watching on the replay, I appreciate you as well. All right, and with that, we're out of here. Take it easy.